Namaste and welcome to shaktipremanand.com my name is Shira Basi and we're talking on relationships and difficult conversations this morning. So we'll just wait and give it some time for people to join us here live on Instagram. And namaste to everyone who is joining us. I appreciate that. Namaste. Thank you. And I'm here from the UK. Do tell me where you're all from. I'd love to know where you're joining us from and what it is that you particularly want in terms of this relationships and difficult conversations session today. We'll have a question and answer session. So we'll talk for about 10 to 15 minutes. And then afterwards we will have a question and answer session. Whoever wants to be interactive with us can make the request and we'll make it interactive also. So thank you. So shall we begin? What is the nature of relating? What is a relationship, first of all, I think is really the first thing. And we've all had them, whether it's with our parents, in our own family, with siblings, at work. So relationships is something that we all are familiar with. But how many of us are actually taught, whether it's at school or at work, how to do relationships? Very few. It's something we kind of like fall and trample and just fall over and pick ourselves up and then start all over again. And most of us keep making the same mistakes again and again and again in all the relationships. And then we end one, close the door, build a wall, start again, and we find it's a repetitive cycle. So how can we actually overcome this pattern and have a relationship where there is harmony, peace, happiness, trust, compassion, respect, and vulnerability? Because being vulnerable in a relationship allows one to actually engage at a deeper, intimate space. And most of us are in fear of intimacy, and this fear of intimacy then disconnects us, because this fear of intimacy, of actually speaking our own for ourselves in terms of what we want from the relationship and being in harmony with the other person, being in harmony with ourselves, is actually what allows us to build a bridge between us and then the other person. So and where does that bridge begin from? It certainly isn't about a blame game and blaming another human being or being a victim to your circumstances. It's about self-mastery. So self-mastery is the recognition that I am responsible for the relationship. I am responsible for what I put out. I am responsible for the impact that I'm having on another person and what comes out of my mouth and what I'm asking for. And also in that communication, I allow myself to open my heart and come from a space of love, and come from a space of compassion, and come from a space of kindness, and come from a space of harmony and peace and respect and integrity, that my word is my bond. Because if I'm unable to honor my own words, how am I going to honor another human being? If what comes out of my mouth is constantly manipulation or narcissism or control or domination, or constantly demanding me, then that's not going to create a harmonious relationship. That's going to create a very narcissistic, a very selfish, self-centered way of relating. And relating is relating to people, but two people from with who you are and who the other person is. So giving enough boundary, giving enough space, not owning another person, because you can never own another person's mind or their values or their beliefs, but it's respecting the common differences, the uniqueness that we all share of our personality, the identity that we give ourselves, and at the same time allowing for the unity, which is the consciousness, the chit, the allowing of I am enough and the other person is enough, and that together we can create a harmonious and peaceful relationship without any walls or with intimacy, because that's the greatest fear that people have. And that fear can only be overcome when we have the courage to ask for what we want and respect and honor the other person, and at the same time have our boundaries that they cannot cross. They cannot trample on you as a human being in terms of respect, in terms of not honoring you, in terms of not honoring what they say they will do, because those are all kind of pointers saying, the other person has got a lot of work to do on themselves. And, let them get on with it, because you're not there as a therapist. And so if you're not there as a therapist to actually fix them, they have to go and find it in themselves, or they hire us. And if they do that, then they have a greater chance of having a harmonious, non-narcissistic relationship, and one that allows the other person to be themselves, that allows this person to be who they are without banging away at each other all of the time. Yeah. So that was the thing. And so how do we get to this? Let me tell you a little story before we get there. So God in his creation, or if you want to call it consciousness, or the energy, or whatever, the universal flow, he decided that he was going to create his finest creation. And in this finest creation, he created man and woman. So he said, this is the epitome of the universe, and in them are all the powers that I possess. And after he had created man and woman, he realized how much power he had given. And he realized the potential, because they had free will. And in that free will, they could do anything. They could destroy the entire universe. So after he'd created man, he realized, oh my God, what have I done? And so he said, I've got to find a way of protection, and also of giving them an olive branch to save themselves should they ever get into a situation of self-destruction. So he asked his advisors, like, where shall I go? And his advisors said, well, you can maybe go and bury yourself in the ground and in the deep earth. And then he thought about that. He said, no, they're too smart. They will find me there. And then they said, well, why don't you go to the skies and go outside into the universe? And he said, no, they'll find me there. They're very smart. And then his third advisor said, well, why don't you actually go and hide in man himself? And namaste. And so he said, in hiding in man himself, that's it. He said, they will never find me there. So the topic of relationships and self-love and self-mastery is to find that person within oneself, so that harmony outside can happen when we know who we are, when we can no longer tolerate fools around us, when we learn to, walk away, to adapt, or to accept. And but those come from us, those decision making. It's not from the other person. It's not from being a victim. It's not from judging. It's not from saying, it's just knowing, I'm enough. I know what I want. If you can't come here to meet me, and I cannot accept where you are at, then we have to go. So that self-mastery is absolutely fundamental to making decisions in our lives, so that we can have these difficult conversations. Otherwise, what happens is things go on for years, for generations. Families don't talk to each other. Siblings and parents don't talk to each other. I mean, let's look at, I'm here in the UK, and, our Prince Harry, he married Meghan, an American citizen. Beautiful woman. And well done, Harry. But her relationship with her father is well, I mean, there's a wall. I mean, they're at war with one another, and so much so that he didn't attend her wedding, and that's now continuing. It's continuing. It's ongoing. He's unable to see his grandchild. So that's taken to the next generation, and that's what happens when you have a wall and you're not able to have these difficult conversations with someone, because you're not accepting that responsibility is yours. You're in victimhood, you're in blame, you're saying everything is out there, the answers are out there, but actually the answers are inside you, and the access of that knowledge is inside you, and the decision making is inside you. Having that difficult conversation is also inside you, but that requires courage, it requires strength, it requires knowing who you are and having the tools to do it in a way without victimizing, and without judging. So now I'll open it up. If there's anyone who wants to join in and make this interactive with us, then just give us a shout and I'll include you. I don't know who's here still with us. We've had various people coming and going. So if there's anyone asking anything right now from us, any question or anything? Okay. There's no question and nobody wants to join in. Fine. Well, thank you all for joining us. And so, as you know, we're doing these live every 2 weeks here on Instagram. And the topic is all about relationships and difficult conversations and what that means. And if you are interested in having this with me, then send us an email to forceoflove@shaktipremanand.com. And also there is a note there. You can fill the form in and send that to us, and I can be in touch with you to arrange a session. And also we have our online 6-month self-practice program. That's if you're an advanced person and you really want self-mastery. Call it like the MBA of life, which is encompassing a number of skills to get you to that vibrational frequency of love. What does my institution do? Ajay, namaste. I know you've been contacting me regularly, and so yes, thank you for your compliments. I appreciate them. And also, I'm much more than my skin and my body. Okay. So what does my institution do? It's called the Force of Love Academy. And the Force of Love Academy is about bringing transcendence into reality through mastery of oneself as the expression of that reality. And we work with the individual to using their relationships with themselves, with their families, at work, in order to realize that and take full responsibility, 110% of what's happening to you in life, who you bring in to your life also, and raising your vibration so that you can then join and live a fulfilling life. And in the words of Markle, not surviving but thriving. But that doesn't just happen from just, without taking responsibility. It's about taking personal responsibility for everything that you do. And there's no blame game. It's not about saying to another person, you didn't ask me how I am. It takes you to ask them and be the change you want to see in others. Fundamentally is what personal responsibility is about, and the oneself. Because everything that you see around you in your life, be it events and circumstances, are there in a karmic term to teach you, to evolve you, and to help you grow. Namaste, namaste. So now if there's anybody who's still here who has any questions on self-mastery and relationships and self-love, then please, you can either join in, I can invite you in, or I was about to leave, but more have joined. So if there's anything you want to know, then please, I can invite you in. Okay, namaste. Thank you. So click on www.shaktipremanand.com. Book a session of relationships and difficult conversations. Namaste.